Hey, glad you can make it back. Listen, not every day can be a plus $50 bourbon day. So today we're going to go for, I would call it a budget bourbon, but it's a really, really good bourbon. Stick around and I'll show you what it is. All right, we have Larceny, Old Fitzgerald Distillery. It says, distilled and bottled by Old Fitzgerald Distillery, coming in at 92 proof, 46% by volume. So it's basic, standard old octane bourbon here. You can see I've tried it. I've had it before. But like I said before, I try these different bourbons and so many of them. I have 30 bourbons in all. And of course I've had more than that, and I will have more than that as time progresses. But it's a long time in between, and it's sort of like seeing an old friend. You recognize them, but they've changed, or maybe this hasn't changed, but I have to be reminded of the nuances of the bourbon, so it's always a fun trip. But let's go ahead and uncork this sucker. It smells like bourbon. Now, with these bourbons here, and as always, if you don't drink this, I will. But with these bourbons, I put this in the same classification category as Elijah Craig and a few others. But they're not going to give you the depth that you get off of some of the other older bourbons, aged a little longer. Of course, they cost more, or bottled straight from the cask, they're going to cost more. These are, of course, distilled and then probably water added to bring, the alcohol level to where they want it. But get a little air in this thing. But these are great bourbons. And they're not your cheapest cheap bourbons that you can get from the liquor store, but they're not the most expensive ones either. And, you're going to get, it's pretty good legs. You're going to get some cling to the glass on these, but not thick coatings, like you would out of some of the other bourbons. Of course, Old Fitzgerald Distillery has a bunch of different, more expensive stuff as well. But this is a great standard old bourbon to have on the shelf. It's what I remember about it, but we're going to dissect it a little bit more than that. Yep, and I'm getting the typical bourbon stuff. I'm getting the vanilla. I'm getting the apple. A little bit of some oak in there, but young, new oak, type smells. Not crossing over at all into the florals. So this is a wheater. There's either very little or no rye in this at all, but we know it's 51% corn. And when I talk about it is, if it has rye or wheat, 51 or more percent corn, but I will let you know if it's 100% corn. I have a couple of them up there that's all corn pretty much. But what I'm talking about is that secondary grain besides corn. So most of the time, the bourbons on my shelf, the secondary grain in it is going to be wheat. But I do like a good rye every once in a while. And I actually have a 100% rye on my shelf, which is not a bourbon. Okay. But we will review it on here, but I'm not going to review it as a bourbon because it is not. It's a rye whiskey. But we'll talk about it a little bit later on. But today we're going to enjoy Larceny. Yeah, and that's about it. I'm getting on the nose, your typical bourbon notes. So let's go ahead and give her a little taste here. Interesting. I don't really remember it not being that sweet, but it's not like the Elijah Craig. Elijah Craig is very center of the tongue for me. And I am getting some sweetness off the center of the tongue, but I wouldn't put it in the same category as the sweetness I get off of some of the others. Even Eagle Rare, I think, has more sweetness to me, and it may differ among other people, but I tend to recognize that sweetness right down the middle of my tongue, and then I get the leather and oakier, darker notes over here on the sides. Coating, it did okay. I think it has a little bit longer finish than, say, Elijah Craig, but I'm certainly not getting my roller coaster tickle in the stomach that I do from some of the cask strengths or barrel proofs. So let's give her another go. Okay. Yeah, and I'm getting a little dried fruit out of that. I think Elijah Craig is like 3 or 4 noted to me. You've got your sugars, and then you got vanilla and maybe a candied apple or a very light caramel apple, where this one is giving me some darker notes, but I wouldn't go to peppers or leathers. I wouldn't go that far. But I am getting some woodier notes out of there, some oakier notes, but not the conical and not the florals. But I am, and when I say floral, I'm really talking about rye. When I talk about rose petal floral, but I am getting some like wildflowers or honeysuckle. But now the honeysuckle, I reserve that description really for Elijah Craig. And I think I get some of those notes out of Eagle Rare, but of course Eagle Rare takes it up a notch and you get a little bit more. But this is a really good bourbon for what it is. Lower price point, pretty much always find it on the shelves around here. So just standard old good bourbon to have around. It is, when I take a drink and pull it down, I am getting a great coating on that glass. It's clinging really well to the sides of the glass, but even though the visual is there, I'm not getting that long finish on it like I would be expecting, or the wide coating on the tongue that I would expect. And I don't know what that's due to, but I'm just being honest about my review here of this bourbon. But yeah, it's good, neat. I'm a neat bourbon drinker. And I know I've mentioned it before, and we'll get into adding some water to some later. I wouldn't add water to this at all. It's already tame enough without doing that. I don't think it's going to open up. I don't think there's anything to open up in it. I think all you're going to do is water it down. So I wouldn't do that. But some of the other ones, yeah, we'll put some drops of water in there and see what it does. It does open up more notes sometimes when you do that, and you will pick up different things. But I really think this would actually diminish in that aspect if you added water to it. Now, I'm not dogging anybody. If you want to drink this over ice, go right on ahead. But by the time you get to the end of your glass, you're going to be sipping ice water, pretty much. But that is a good, pleasant bourbon. I'm starting to maybe get some caramel out of that, but mostly fresh fruit. Maybe a little dry fruit in there, but not too dry. I wouldn't say caramelized, like roasted caramelized fruit or anything like that, but maybe a little, maybe some hints here and there. So I'm going to go ahead and end this video here. If you enjoyed this, please click the like button and give me a thumbs up or whatever it is on YouTube. I have so many channels. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. So, but definitely, if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe, and I'll keep bringing you these videos.